All right, everybody. So I think let's get started. I want to thank all of you for taking this time to join our webinar. I know there's a lot going on in the world right now, and we're all a bit confused and a bit unsure. But I think, then it's actually a good thing to just take this this time out of the evening to just maybe focus on something else entirely. And I think, this is quite an interesting subject. I've been working with children now for the past 8 years. I am the owner of the BioLink Attention Training in Witbank. I have a degree in occupational therapy. I got my European degree about 10 years ago. So at our center, we don't only assist children who struggle to concentrate, we also assist with reading. And I've been looking a lot into reading techniques over the past years. Obviously, everything that I'm saying tonight is from experience. So this is the language thing is such an interesting topic for me. So I'm not a language expert, but I just went out and I just tried to, gather some information around schooling in the second language, because it's something that I see at our center a lot, especially at our reading center. We see a lot of children who are who are struggling to read or struggling academically because they are in an English school, for instance, but they speak a different language at home. And I'm sure all of you here tonight are here because you are in some type of similar situation. I know there are some teachers joining us tonight and some parents. So at the end of our webinar, please feel free to share some thoughts with me about this topic. This won't be a very long webinar. My goal is with this webinar is just to have a look at, the challenges that these children are facing at school, the importance of the role that language plays in your education, and the tips that we have for you to actually help them increase their language skills. And to build on that to make sure that they are better equipped academically. So yes, let's get started. I just want to admit a few more people. Okay, there we go. So yes, reading and learning in a second language. My name is Wilma Jansen-Viljoen, and I'm very excited to be sharing this webinar with you. Like I said, it's a passion of mine. I've been through quite a language journey in my life myself. So before we start, I would just like to share my own language journey with you. Or actually my family's language journey. So on the screen, you will see my family. At the left, we are a small family, which is me, my husband, Roel, who is Dutch, and our little girl, Lisa, who is in grade 1 now. And Lisa speaks Dutch, English, and Afrikaans. At home, we speak Afrikaans and Dutch, and Lisa is being schooled in Afrikaans. We're trying to juggle the 3 languages at the moment because we just find it important that that she can keep up with all 3. You want to do well at school and support her academically. But I also want her to be very strong in her heritage languages because she needs to communicate with our Dutch family as well. You can imagine the communication with the Dutch grandparents. So that's why I say, a lot of these tips are all gathered from personal experience, largely. So just to give you some background, after matric, I took a gap year and went to the Netherlands as an au pair. So in the Netherlands, I had to learn Dutch quite quickly because I wrote my matric exam, and on the 1st of December, I was on the plane. So there was no time for a language course. I was thrown into this new situation where I had to learn Dutch. I had to look after a little girl who only spoke Dutch. So I had to look for resources and things to help me learn and acquire this new language, because I had to use it every day. So mainly I listened to her throughout the year, and I just tried to respond to her with a mixture of Dutch and Afrikaans. And, but just by doing that every day, and by practicing every day, and by listening to what's going on around me, and going to the supermarkets and listening to Dutch TV and Dutch adverts, little by little, things started happening for me, and I started acquiring the language. Then later in the year, as au pair, I met my Dutch husband, and he actually had a good laugh at me, because he said that when we first met, my Dutch was similar to that of a little 4-year-old. I didn't know, because I was communicating perfectly with the little 4-year-old that I was looking after. But yes, so after that, I just got more exposure to the language. I studied in Dutch. I wrote my thesis in Dutch, and I actually worked there for 2 years. So I was in the Netherlands for 7 years. And yes, even the little town where we stayed in the Netherlands, there we didn't only have to speak Dutch, but it also had its own dialect, because we were very close to the German and the French borders. So I was, 25 years old, and I had to learn, these new dialects and be able to communicate in them, because I was working there. So I'm guessing I'm also trying to say that you're never too old to learn a new language. But I'm also very aware of the challenges. What we see with our little girl is that she tends to sometimes mix the languages, because of the fact that Dutch and Afrikaans are very similar in some ways. But yes, I'm going to speak a lot about reading and having conversations later on in this webinar, because we've seen it really works. And this was some advice that I got when Lisa was still very small. So I used to read books to her, and I would alternate between the Afrikaans and the English, and my husband would Dutch. And today Lisa's in grade 1, and she can actually read English, Afrikaans, and Dutch. So, I'm hoping that I could also give you some tips that you could use from what we did, because we can really speak from experience and say that, with the enough exposure and with the correct type of exposure, we could really help our children a lot. So that's just a bit about my language journey. Let me carry on. So there are some questions on the screen. And by the way, if you can't see the screen, please let me know in the chat box. But here are some questions that I just want you to answer for yourself. Because I think that, starting on this journey and actually assisting your children, we have to kind of just look at the situation that we're in now, and reflect on that and see how we can maybe improve on our situation. So let's start. How many age-appropriate English books does your child own? And this is now speaking to parents who have their home language and who take their children to an English school. All right, so do you have age-appropriate English books at home that your child can read? So how much time per day does your child spend speaking English at home? All right, so not at school, at home. And then how much time per day does your child spend reading English at home? Because speaking and reading is where we start. All right, so assess your situation, answer these questions, and answer them honestly. Because if we can answer these questions honestly, then that will help us to set goals going forward. So these were just some questions that I put on here to kind of get the thoughts going. I don't know if you would like to reflect and maybe answer these questions in the chat box. Maybe if you have a thought to share with the rest of us, you're always very, very welcome. I'll just go to our chat box every now and then. But yes, so where are we going to start? So I want to start with showing you how important the language development is holistically. So in all areas, you will see in this triangle that our language development is right at the top, because the language development influences our social and cultural processes. I will give you some examples later on, but just to give you one example is if you're in an English school and you struggle with the language, then you're also going to struggle to be social. All right, you're going to struggle maybe to make friends because you're limited in your vocabulary and in the conversations that you want to have with these new friends. So language development definitely has an impact there. Language development impacts the cognitive development because we need to understand a language to be able to learn in that language. And if the cognitive development is impacted, then that has an influence on your academic development as well. So just to show you in this graph, how important the language development is, and it's actually quite at the center of how we function and of how we function academically. So we should definitely not underestimate the fact that our children might be struggling with the language that they are receiving their schooling in. So that's just the graph to give you that explanation there. And then we didn't make up a new word here at the top of the slide. The word that we wanted to put in there is general. There was a little computer glitch there. Maybe we could make up a new word there. But general challenges when learning in a second language. So what are these children facing at school and at home? They often need instructions repeated. So the teachers will also know, you find yourself explaining something to the class, but you will have to repeat those instructions 2, maybe 3 more times if the children are not comfortable with the language. These children have difficulty following a story because they don't understand all the words. And this might lead to daydreaming or present as a concentration problem because they're children. So if a child is sitting in a classroom or they're listening to a presentation and they only understand here and there, they lose interest. And what does a child do? They start daydreaming, thinking about other things, looking out the window, fidgeting a bit maybe, because they're having trouble following the story. And it's now presenting as a concentration problem, but in the meantime, they're just really unsure about the language and about the information that they get. These children may develop a poor self-esteem and a little bit of anxiety because they keep hitting a wall. They misunderstand instructions and then carry out these instructions wrongly. And there are consequences to that maybe. So if they keep hitting this wall, that can turn into anxiety. That could cause them they don't like going to school, or they try to avoid homework, or they try to avoid social circumstances because of that. And that really in turn impacts the self-esteem. I spoke a little bit about the social challenges. They might have trouble making friends, and they tend to mix languages. So, and we really see that a lot. And let me tell you, I've been listening to myself for the past few days as I was compiling this presentation. And it might even happen tonight that, especially us Afrikaans people, we are in the habit of mixing our languages. We have a lot of English words that we just throw in there. And, I've also just realized this week that I must pay attention to that, because I have a little 6-year-old who is building her language, she's building her language skills, and she's learning from me. So yes, but these children also at school tend to mix their languages. And then we can look at the educational challenges as well. These children really struggle to read because firstly, with the little ones, they have difficulty mastering sounds because an ah in English sounds different than an ah in Afrikaans. In Afrikaans, it's ah. So, and in another language, it sounds different again. So, and mastering sounds and phonics is your foundation for reading. So if they struggle there, then you kind of tend to struggle with the building blocks that follow in your reading process. So that might lead to difficulty with comprehension as well, because if they struggle to read and build a word, then they will not be able to comprehend a full paragraph or a full sentence. They struggle with word sums because, again, of the lack of comprehension. You must be comfortable with the words that you're seeing in order to put them together to understand the main idea. And I know we have a high school teacher on our webinar tonight, just to maybe give you an example that you can maybe relate with. If we look at the high school children, they have much more complex articles that they work through, and they have much more complex projects and maths. And so if there's a little bit of insecurity about the language, and if the children aren't completely comfortable with the language, then comprehension goes to the back seat. And that is why they struggle in exams, and they struggle doing their homework independently. They try to avoid homework because, again, they're hitting that wall of not really understanding what they need to do. And they often need assistance from parents, or from a teacher, or from a friend. They don't really have that confidence to work independently yet. And then again, they tend to struggle with comprehension and with insight as they progress. When they progress to the higher grades, often they are required to answer questions. I don't know if it's the correct term. I want to call them insight questions, or insigvrae in Afrikaans. And, to have that insight, you have to really comprehend what's being asked of you. And that is something that, is difficult to learn by just having a tutor or by just working through old exam papers. It has to do with being comfortable with the language and being exposed to the language as often as you can, so that it can become second nature. That's what it comes down to. So these are just, a few of the challenges that these children tend to struggle with. I'm sure our teachers and even our parents can maybe add to these challenges. So what can we do? What can we do to help our children get used to and get comfortable to the second language? So there are three main ways. So by setting, firstly, so you can say to them, okay, English is spoken only in school and in the car, and then our heritage language is spoken at home. All right, so that's one way of making it clear for, setting clear goals. I won't say just speak English at school, because what we want is some extra exposure to get comfortable with the English language. So I would definitely add to that, but this is just to give you an example of learning a new language by setting. You can learn a new language by topic. So you can say English is spoken during homework time, and our heritage language is spoken during dinner time, or family outings, family activities. So now you actually linking the language to a certain topic or to a certain activity at home. Or you can also introduce the language by speaker. So you can say mom will speak only English and dad will speak only Russian, or whatever your heritage language is, which is something that we also did when Lisa was very, very small. I would speak Afrikaans and my husband would speak Dutch. And then Granny and Grandpa on my husband's side would also keep speaking Dutch. Granny and Grandpa on my side would speak Afrikaans. So that's also a way that you can kind of divide divide time and link a language to that. But I would definitely say homework time must be in the language that you're receiving your schooling in. Homework time, reading time, study time must be in your school language so that your brain can link all these activities to that language. So that language can become the school language. I think that's definitely my favorite is linking the speaking of the language to a setting and to a topic. I hope it makes sense. So there we go. Like I said, by speaker, mom will speak only English, dad speaks the heritage language. But what I want to say here is that with any method, try not to mix the languages. All right. So like I said, I must look after my language use. I must be more thoughtful when I speak in front of my child and, be more careful not to mix your languages. It confuses them. We want to make a definite separation between the heritage language and the language at school, because it becomes a habit really quickly. And I think us adults can relate to that. Okay. All right, so just some more techniques to improve and teach that, the active listening skills and comprehension in your second language. So there are a lot of online language courses or audio books because you have to hear the language. And this is something that I really saw in the Netherlands. And I'm busy learning a bit of French. But if I don't hear French, it's not around me anymore as it was during my time in Europe. I lose so much. I don't pronounce correctly. I forget words because, learning a language means you're hearing the language. So there are so many audiobooks available. There are so many apps that you can download with audiobooks that they can listen to so that they can hear the language. And with our little ones especially, it really helps if you can have an audio version of the book that they're reading. And if you can't find it in a shop, you can record your own voice while reading this book and let them listen to that recording while they are reading through the book. Because I know that's how some of the grade 3s that come to me, that's how they learn their Afrikaans reading, is by looking at the words and the teacher actually sends a recording. They need to hear the language. It's not just about speaking and reading. So that brings us to television. A lot of parents say, my child has perfect English because that's all they watch. They watch TV. Yes and no. In the Netherlands, I also used the television mainly because there were subtitles, so I could read the Dutch subtitle and hear the English word and say, oh, okay, so that's the word that they're using for this English word. But most of the children's shows are not South African. So it's either American or it comes from England. So that's where we get a bit of a wrong pronunciation. Rubble on the double is not going to help you understand your English teacher necessarily. And then I also see when I read with them at the reading center, they would read can't instead of can't. So yes, TV can help a little bit, but pronunciation-wise, not as much. And, TV should never substitute time that you could use for rather reading to them. That's just kind of the rule that I want to give there. Then I want you to encourage conversations with English-speaking friends or people. Go ask your teacher how her holiday was. Go ask the lady in the shop where we can find the carrots. Ask the lady at the door where the butchery is. And then come tell mommy. All right, so encourage them to have short, simple conversations with English-speaking people. Again, they're hearing the language, they're speaking the language, they're getting feedback, and it builds the self-esteem around the whole language thing as well. So then there's a cool, very cool website, vocabulary.com, which I want everybody here tonight to really have a look at. We've done it a few times with Elisa, and it's actually quite fun because it expands your English vocabulary in a fun way by playing games. And you can actually advance to new levels. It even has a dictionary, but the dictionary isn't as formal as a normal dictionary or your classic online dictionary. It gives a very fun explanation of a new word. So after this webinar, quickly go to this website, sign up, it's free, and get started. Maybe play around with it yourself before you let your children go onto the website. And you can actually do age-appropriate things with them as well. So there's something in there for everybody. I myself challenge my vocabulary on this website. And it's really cool. I think it's the coolest way to expand your language. And then read to them. Read to them. And this is something that I can testify today. It works. Read a story to them, let them listen, and then let them retell the story. This helps for language. This helps for imaginative thinking. It helps for vocab. It helps for concentration because they need to stay focused while you're reading and retell the story in the correct order. If the little ones still struggle to retell the whole story, you can maybe ask them questions. Can you remember what the prince did before he went into the woods with his horse? Things like that. You can ask very specific questions. But please make this a daily thing. Bedtime stories is, it's still important. It's still very important to do. And I've been doing it since Lisa was 2 years old, and we've never, ever missed a single day of reading before we go to sleep. 5-minute story. And like I said, Lisa has really been benefiting from it a lot, definitely. So reading, very, very important. You can also read with them. They must see that you're trying to. If English isn't your home language, get yourself some nice English books, even audiobooks. Let's put that example out to them that it's important to master this new language, even if it tends to be hard. Sometimes my daughter and I would try out a Dutch recipe that we got from Granny. And then sometimes I get stuck and I have to phone Granny and ask, what does this mean? But yes, Granny also tries Afrikaans recipes, and then we get to translate for her. So just show them that you're also learning and that you're also trying. And then, also with the older children, get them into the habit of underlining difficult words that they read in a passage. Even if they read something for comprehension, read through it with a pencil and a ruler and underline those difficult words. And discuss those words. That's how you build your vocabulary. That's how you learn to use new words. You can even have an arrangement with them that if you learned a new word, try to use it tomorrow. That's definitely what we're doing as well. Or if they see a difficult word, let them look it up on vocabulary.com, and it will also give a fun explanation. And then especially for the grade 1 parents, grade R, grade 1 parents, there are some YouTube videos that definitely help with learning the correct sounds in English and the correct pronunciation. Remember that our little ones have to learn phonetically. What that means is we're no longer saying A, B, C like we did when we went to school. We're now saying A, B, K. All right. And again, if your home language is not English, then there's a slight chance that you might be mispronouncing these sounds. And our children are listening very carefully because it could be a bit tricky. Just, the difference between an A and an and with the teachers having to wear masks now, it makes it a lot more tricky because looking at the mouth really helps. But there are a lot of YouTube videos. If you go onto YouTube and you put in phonics pronounced sounds. You'll definitely find videos there, but we can also send one to you via email that we use a lot. And then consider your child's hobbies when you choose books for them or when you choose activities for them. It just makes learning more fun. If your child likes soccer, try to find an article about his favorite soccer player. Read through that. Or when the match is on, try to put on the English commentary so that he can try and follow that. My little one loves cooking. She's a real little chef. So I try to get Dutch recipes or English recipes so that we can try and follow that recipe in a fun way. And then when you ask them questions, you know, those typical driving home from school questions in the car, try to go beyond questions that have yes and no answers. Did you have a nice day? Yes. Try to prompt a conversation. Say, so what did you do in maths today? What did your teacher say about your land service meeting? What games did you play with your friends during break time? So you're doing this in English and you're trying to prompt a conversation. And then obviously you have to correct them, but be subtle about it. And I know this from experience as well. I know during my time in the Netherlands, I would tell a story in Dutch and, you know, I was corrected 50 times before I got to the end of my story. And I also got to a stage where I just thought, you know what, I'm just not going to tell any stories anymore. Or, you know, just let me finish telling my story. So be subtle when you correct them, but we need to correct them because that's how they learn, however frustrating it may be. You know, there are definitely a lot of advantages of learning in a second language. Because science has shown that kids who are exposed to several languages tend to be more creative and they are better at developing problem-solving skills. Learning a second language helps to build cognitive abilities, thinking and planning activities, which gives them an easier time learning other languages in the future. All right. And then it gives a future advantage when studying or in the workplace. You know, and if you just look at the country that we live in and, you know, our high school children who are almost, you know, on their way to studying, you know, we live in a bilingual world, at least bilingual. So a lot of your articles are going to be in English at university. Even where I studied in the Netherlands, my articles were in English. So that's where my English really helped me out. So, you know, it gives a future advantage if they really, if they're very good at a second language. And, you know, it makes searching for information on the internet easier. Higher grades have to do projects where they have to look for information on the internet. So if you're comfortable with the English language, then you're just going to be able to find things faster on Google because you'll be able to use the correct terms for what you're looking for. And they'll also be able to do it more independently. And they'll be able to sift through the information that they find more independently. So that's definitely a huge, huge advantage of learning that second language. I don't know if there are any questions so far. I'm really having a great time and I'm chatting away. I see Elise raised her hand. Elise, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask that question.
I just have a question. If you now have a learner that do struggle with comprehension and their reading and comprehension skills aren't on the level that it should be, how do we fix that?
Thank you, Elise. So the frustrating part about this is that there is no quick way to fix it. Obviously, we want to expose them to as many maybe old comprehension tests to work through. But an important part about mastering this language is like we say, to hear it and to be exposed to it. Elisa, what you can maybe do, maybe, or not you as a teacher, maybe there's a parent or somebody that can help you, is to maybe take 1 or 2 pieces of comprehension. Maybe there's a story, or maybe there's an informative article that you can record, and give the recording together with that article so that the student can go home and really practice that every day. And I think this is where commitment from the parents will also play a huge role, because it's all about as much exposure as possible at this stage. And also asking them questions afterwards to check if they really understood, Elise, because what also happens in the classroom is, because these children hit this wall so often, after a while they said, oh, well, I understood, or they don't ask. And in the meantime, they don't really understand and just fall behind even more. I hope that makes a bit of sense.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to try. Sorry. And then I just have another question, because you mentioned that YouTube videos can also be used for learning the sound and the correct pronunciation. What I just found, especially when I did like a Shakespeare play with my learners, and some of the words that were pronounced, okay, not now the Shakespearean language, but some of the English words were pronounced in such a way that it was actually completely incorrect to the way that we pronounce it. So I'm just going to maybe ask for that, that you use, so that I can maybe, especially the one learner that struggles with me, that I can maybe help him with that. Because I know sometimes if you go onto YouTube, there are places where it isn't completely correct. So I'm just scared sometimes of letting a learner do that by themselves, because then they also hear it incorrectly.
Yes. So the specific example that I was talking about has, I think, more to do with the little ones, and just with really with the and the but what I think would be best in your, because then we're kind of moving to that language confusion that we get with the television as well. Hey, you have your American accent and you have your British pronunciation. I think if you're the one, how can I say, constructing the play with them, then maybe it would be a good idea if you yourself record those sentences, or if you can find another teacher or person who has a strong vocal ability with correct pronunciation and record those sentences with them so that they can listen to those. That usually, I think that would kind of be your safest bet. So that you know that you're getting the pronunciation that you are expecting from them.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. I see there's a chat. Matilda, my phone is dying. We'll try to come in with the other one if there's enough battery. Matilda, don't worry. We are doing a recording. So everybody who registered will also receive a recording of this webinar, so that you can listen to it again later on in your own time. So don't worry about that. Elise, is there another question, or is the hand just raised still?
No, there's not another question. I just don't know how to get it off.
Okay, no worries. No worries. Everybody, then, are there any other questions? Or things that you're worrying about, maybe tips that you can share with the rest of us? Then everybody's going to receive a gift. I have some free comprehension exercises. Elise, I'm just going to, because you're with the high school children, so I'm going to actually just design something separate for you. If anybody else wants high school comprehension exercises as well, please just pop us an email. We've actually compiled some comprehension exercises for our foundation phase learners, which is nice because it's a short story. So there's the fun part, that you get to read to them. and then they can retell the story. I took out some new words that they might not know, and they can actually discuss these new words with you. And then there's a part where they can draw a picture of the story, just so that you can also get that imagination going, and so that you can also check whether they understood what the story was about. So we will be definitely emailing you those stories as well. So that's your.
Can I just ask you something again? Sorry. I just want to know, first of all, thank you for this. I really think that it helped, not just for me, maybe for the high school, but also for my little one as well. So even if it's only the comprehensions that you compiled for the foundation phase, I would be more than able to use it for him as well. So thanks a lot, and thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And I think it's actually a pity that not more parents or teachers could actually see your webinar. So I just think that it's useful to hear it from someone else as well. So thank you for that.
It's a huge pleasure. And I think, while I was looking for this information, there's not really, you don't really have a lot of, very specific information about this topic. Like I said, most of it is from what I've tried and tested in my field and in my family. But yes, like I said, you all going to receive the recording. You're welcome to send it around. If you think of any other questions tonight or after you've watched the webinar, you are so welcome to get in touch with us. And we will definitely be there to answer your questions. It's fun for me. I like this topic. So yes, please stay in touch. So that's all from me for tonight. I hope that everybody had a good time. I hope that it was meaningful. And yes, get in touch if there are any questions. And everybody must please keep safe, keep healthy, and enjoy the winter and stay warm and read those books and create those memories. That's all from me tonight. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.